This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast Season 6, Episode 16. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there, kids.
And we have Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington. How's it going?
Oh, damn.
I think you had it right. I said it at the same time as him. Didn't you hear it?
Yeah. It felt like I just missed the window.
I can fix it in post, don't forget, right? So that's a fact follow-up from last week's show, in case you were... Go back and listen to that one. You'll understand what we're doing. Alrighty. Anyway, speaking of fact check, the painting, which Jonathan asked me about last week, I did kind of sort of reckon it was really badly out of focus. I did a screen capture of it, and then I took it over to Google and did an image search on it, and it turns out I don't know what they did for lighting or whatever, but it looks nothing like the actual painting in real life. It would look really dark and muddy in the show. But the painting is called The Concert by an Open Window by Vermeer. And it's also known as The Concert. But Johannes Vermeer is, he's known for his light and dark and stuff. He's the guy with the girl with the pearl earring, and he also had somebody pouring water beside a window in the kitchen, kind of, lit by the sunlight kind of deal. That was his shtick. So,
and that was the one that we saw in it was in the back of the antique shop in last week's Strange New Worlds, right?
Yeah, it's that Pelia. Yeah, that Pelia was apparently had stolen from the Louvre. Now it's funny because I added this to IMDb, and we'll see if they accept my submission, because I noticed in my submissions on IMDb that I put two submissions in for the Wonder Woman movie. Remember the one with what's her name from Saturday Night Live?
Kristen Wiig. Yep.
Yeah, that one. I put in two submissions, and they rejected them both. This is true. I saw this thing, and I put this fact together. I mean, they accepted all the facts we put in about Spotcast and about ourselves and more than just code that I put in there, but they wouldn't accept the one for Wonder Woman. It's weird, eh?
That is weird.
Yeah, so for this one, I said, hey, I did a Google image search. We'll see if they buy that or not, besides the fact that I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, right? small thing. But anyway, speaking of fact check, let's jump into fact check. So John's got some fact check, and I've got some questionable fact check for him, but I did find it the answer, but I'm just curious about it. So
okay. Hit
us with your fact check.
Well, so I think this is going to be a tag team fact check, because Jaime, I think, has some fact check on the fact check.
Ooh, all three of us.
Yes. So last week, I was talking about the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, also known as The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, and how that was only available on Disney Plus in the United States, not in other markets, and it was also now available on the iTunes store here in Canada, but for some reason seemed to be missing episode. And so I looked it up, and the title of the episode that seems to be missing from the iTunes version is The Mystery of the Blues, which I remember that episode very distinctly because it was Harrison Ford's only full appearance on the show, because the show was originally on ABC in North America, and he was the sort of beginning and ending. It was bookmarked by Indiana Jones with this great big bushy white beard, and I remember thinking how unusual it was to see Indiana Jones with big white beard. But so that was the one I was missing, and I think from there Jaime has taken this and run with it, because he's our tester.
Hang on. Before he jumps in there, so I went on the IMDb because when I was doing the editing last week, I thought, I'll just go over there and check. And turns out there are two. If you put Indiana Jones into IMDb, it shows all the movies and these two TV shows. One called, as Jonathan said a minute ago, The Chronicles of Young Indiana Jones, and also The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. Which is like, what? But then I looked at the stars and whatever, it's the same people. So it's obviously the same show, just released under different names. However, under Chronicles, it lists 28 episodes and 3 seasons. And then under Adventures, it references 22 episodes. So there's another weirdness.
Okay, I can explain that part.
Okay, let's get to Jaime's, and then you can come back and explain this part here.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is going through the American Disney Plus, so your kilometerage may vary. if you go into Disney Plus, you see the Indiana Jones collection. And for us, or at least for me, I've not asked any other Americans to confirm that there's not a weird A/B test here. So it will show up as The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. Not the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. And it shows up as one season with 22 episodes. And I'll come back to that. So I can and watch like 30 seconds of Mystery of the Blues, the one where Harrison Ford shows up. That is season 1, episode 20, as far as I can see in Disney Plus. But it gets really sort of confusing because, for me, episode 1 says My First Adventure is the title. And episode 22, the final episode in this supposed one season, is Hollywood Follies. Now, if you go to Wikipedia and look things up, you will see that it's under the entry of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. It says, number of seasons is 2, 28 episodes plus 4 TV films. And then when I dig into the list of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles episodes, because I said, wait a minute, one season with 6 episodes, another season, 22 episodes, and then a TV films season with 4 episodes. And I'm just going to read this paragraph at the top, and of course we have the link in the show notes for those of you transporting home. 28 episodes were produced by Lucasfilm in association with Amblin and Paramount Pictures, though 4 were unaired during the series' original 1992 to 93 run on ABC. In 1996, some of the remaining episodes were combined and aired as 4 two-part TV movies on USA. And then this is the kicker here. The entire series was edited into 22 feature-length films later that year. I think, given that it was like an hour and a half long, I think, for the Mystery of the Blues, I think that's what they're calling here in this Wikipedia entry as feature-length films, and there's 22 of them. That matches up with the one season of 22, and the titles just don't even match. So what did I say? My First Adventure and Hollywood Follies. According to here, it's like Young Indiana Jones and the Curse of the Jackal. Well, what's the other number one? Austria, March 1917. What's the final episode? Transylvania, January 1918. And then from the 4 films, Young Indiana Jones Travels with Father. It is just bonkers. A crazy mess from what I can see.
Bonkers.
It's weird. But I can confirm that we can see Harrison Ford in this series.
It's weird because I see, I'm looking at IMDb, right? So it starts in 1992, then it jumps to 1995 and 96. So it's the first one is The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, My First Adventure, like you mentioned. And then it jumps to like 95, and then there's one in 99. This is under season 1 listing. And then, so they must have just been like, I don't know, drunk when they listed the shows. This is under the Adventures of, right? But under the Chronicles, so Chronicles match, I think, what you were just saying, Jaime. Chronicles, it says 28 episodes. Yeah, Young Indiana Jones and the Curse of the Jackal is the first episode in 1992, according to this. So maybe they went back, and there's only like 6 episodes in 1992. And just 1982. Yeah, it's all messed up. Weird.
Can I go now?
Strange. I don't see the blues one.
I think Jonathan's got the decoder ring because, as described, is literally just what I could see on Wikipedia, what I compared with the American Disney Plus. And we did have Harrison Ford, which was a question the last time, I think.
So the Wikipedia article kind of dances around it a little bit related to the Indiana Jones stuff, but what basically happened was the show aired on ABC for a number of years, and then a few years after it aired, they went back and they re-edited it. Because originally, the way that it was shown was basically they would tell sort of 2 stories in one. They would tell a little bit from really young Indiana Jones, when Indiana Jones was like a kid, and then they would tie that story into another one with like late teens Indiana Jones. So there was actually 2 young Indiana Joneses in the series. And then after the first season, they went back and they stopped using the little kid parts. They just used the teenage one because that part was getting a lot more positive review. So then they went back after the series was done and they re-edited some of the episodes to combine them and change things around. So that's what changed the number count from, I think, 28 to 22. But that still doesn't explain why there's only 20 or 21 episodes on the iTunes store, I don't understand what the limitation was on not having Mystery of the Blues on there. So that's a strange one.
Yeah. There's really interesting stars in this. Like the one thing, by the way, I think you got to get working on your beard there, John, because Harrison Ford is listed as Indiana Jones age 50 in this list. Yeah, so you got like a few months to get that beard going.
Well, I'll see what I can do. I don't think I can grow anything that impressive.
Gray beard, and your gray beard too. That's exactly. Yeah,
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, and then I noticed that Jason Fleming is listed. He's a English actor. You see him in a lot of things. And then Timothy Spall as well. And Jeffrey Wright's in this one too. Huh. Quite a few names besides Harrison Ford.
Well, bottom line is the only person that can see it now for nothing above what they're already paying is Jaime. And so I hope you enjoy Jaime. I actually really enjoyed that series back in the day. The production value was quite high, and when they are filming in when they say they're in North Africa to do a scene, they're in North Africa. When they say they're in Europe, they're in Europe. The budget for it was pretty high, so it's for the time period, there's a level of authenticity that's quite good.
Yeah, I remember watching that show back in the day. Like I remember watching, I probably saw like maybe one or two episodes of it, but
yeah, they used to air it on I think Saturday nights. So I would set my VCR sometimes to record it. It was a little bit sporadic, so I don't think I saw them all.
On your VHS tape there?
That's right, yeah. I didn't see them all in the original run, and then they started putting them out on VHS back in the day, but they never put them all out. They put out sort of a select number, and I had some of those. And then eventually they collected them all in DVD form, so you could get all of the episodes. So that's what I have is the 3 original box sets that cover the entire original run, and that's actually worth pursuing if you're a big Indiana Jones buff, because again, lots of behind the scenes stuff, lots of making of, talking about the legacy. So if you're way into Indiana Jones, that's worth picking up.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right, got a couple more corrections and fact checks here. So we were talking about Superman Legacy and whether or not we would be forced to once again sit through an origin story. Well, we actually got an answer this week on Twitter when James Gunn, who of course is one of the prime architects of the upcoming reboot of the DC Comics cinematic universe, he was asked if we were going to see the Superman origin one more time, and he said no. So explicitly, no, we're not going to have to go and watch the entire origin story again, which is great because I think we talked about it last week. I think we get it. We know we're there. So that's a nice one.
I have a question. In Detective Comics was the first Superman
Action Comics
appearance? Action Comics. So in that first, episode, was there the origin story, or they just, him lifting cars and stuff, or?
I think it is. I'll admit it's been a long time. I have a reprint of the original up here in my office. It's been a long time since I've read it, probably a good 15 or 20 years. But I do seem to recall that it's basically his entire origins told in like one page. But it's interesting. Like if anybody's curious, it is an absolutely fascinating exploration into how characters evolve. If you read the first sort of handful of episodes or a handful of issues of Action Comics, very different vibe that Superman gives off. One, he can't fly, but also, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. That was the deal, right? So,
right, okay.
Very different in his powers. The costume is obviously not quite exactly what we think of when we think of Superman, but just the way he talks, like he's kind of, he's a little bit anti-establishment-y. He's got like a bit of a weird vibe. I mean, this is the 1930s when this character is created, and there's obviously a lot of stuff happening in the world. And it was very interesting to sort of go back and take a look at those books. I highly recommend. You can easily find them on things like Comixology if you want to have a look. But they're
cool.
They're a real different vibe than I think when people think of Superman. So, yeah.
Nice.
A couple things from last week's episode of Strange New Worlds. I had said that they were going to the lakeside restaurant. It was the Lake View, of course. I was mistaken. I got
that would explain why I couldn't find it on Apple Maps.
Yes, the Lake View. And I just could not resist the urge doing this. So bear with me here. So in the episode, they refer to the world's longest bridge was created here in Toronto for the purposes of going to somewhere. And this was a huge blow to humanity, this bridge being destroyed. Okay, so the world's longest bridge right now, in this current time, is in China. It is the Danyang Kunshan Grand Bridge in China. It is 164 kilometers long, which is really long for a bridge. And so that's the number, 164 kilometers. I played a little game with myself on Google Maps by putting a pinpoint down on Cherry Beach where it seems like the bridge starts. And I basically cast it around all the different points that they could connect with. Now, we couldn't connect with Buffalo because Buffalo is actually on the shores of Lake Erie, so that wouldn't work. I thought, well, maybe Niagara Falls, that's not going to work. So I cast around. I got as far as Rochester and thought, okay, well, that's a logical destination, and it's not a straight line across.
Toronto. There used to be a hovercraft from Toronto to Rochester.
There was.
Yeah. Actually, sorry, I'm glad you put the link in the show notes. So I don't have to go looking for it. What was the name of the bridge again?
It was
in China.
Danyang Kunshan Grand Bridge.
Danyang. I'm assuming it's spelled like you say. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Exactly
Danyang
right.
Kunshan.
Yep. So
I just want to see what this bridge looks like.
So I thought, okay, let's see if how far it is from Toronto to Rochester. They're not a straight line across from each other. There is a bit of a diagonal cut. Rochester is further to the east than Toronto is. So the longest distance there from Toronto to Rochester would be 147.67 kilometers from shore to shore. So even if for some unbelievably stupid reason someone decided that was a good idea for a bridge, it still wouldn't be the world's longest bridge, even as of 2023, let alone whenever it is that they theoretically are supposed to have been in Toronto, which is somewhere in our near future where there's, eugenics experiments happening at the ROM and hand scanners and all kinds of cool stuff that can measure your DNA and let you in. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm doing this wrong. Maybe it's just like, what's the widest point from Lake Ontario from the Canadian side to the American side? Well, that's only 85 kilometers. So it couldn't even be that. So there is no logical way that there's any possibility that the world's longest bridge, unless it was literally like a Hot Wheels track in the middle and did a couple of loops around the middle of Lake Ontario, there's no logical place for the world's longest bridge to be connecting Toronto to anything. The only thing that could even remotely make sense is trying to connect it to like the far end of the lake, and even then it doesn't make any sense because there's nothing there. You'd be literally connecting to like upstate New York forests.
By the way, it's 102 miles, Jaime, not kilometers.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out.
What I understand is like this is like a landlocked bridge. Like, what's the deal? Why would they need this bridge? It's between Shanghai and something or other province, but the picture of it just seems like it's running. It's just a raised road, like the Gardiner Expressway, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it could be obviously something.
Oh, it's got a train on it. It's got a train on it. That's why.
Yeah, it could be something spanning a valley as well as a river, water, ocean, whatever.
Yeah, it looks like there's a train on it, so obviously it's maybe to give the train stability or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for the Beijing Shanghai High Speed Railway.
There you go.
Viaduct. Ah.
Yeah, so from Toronto, Ontario to Freedom, New York, is approximately 100 miles. Now, you have been walking on this bridge past Buffalo for some reason, like over Buffalo. It's just like this weird sky bridge that you'd be going on, but sure, could be.
Yeah. Well, it's a choice.
Maybe it's the other way. Like, maybe we shouldn't assume that the bridge starts in Toronto. Maybe it starts in, like, Georgina, just looking at the map here, and then goes somewhere. It goes over the skinny part of what Toronto would have.
That convenient bridge we've always needed between Georgina and Freedom, New York.
Well, Watertown. I've been to Watertown, New York. Is it anywhere near there, Jaime?
Oh, no. This measurement tool is going wild. I don't know where Watertown is. Let me take a look.
It's in New York State.
It's a big state.
Watertown. Yes. Watertown. Where? Oh, all the way over there. So just a bridge that goes like the long way across Ontario, Lake Ontario.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll buy that. Let's see. 100 miles.
Next time I go to Long McQuaid at Dundas and where Bloor Street in Oslington, I'll have to go down to the Lakeview for some poutine.
Yeah.
So you get close to like Prince Edward, so you couldn't make it to the U.S. going the long way.
People love geography on our podcast, I gotta tell you.
Isn't this the best? Like,
Rochester
seriously.
must be like the closest, like that's the only sensible thing, I think.
Yeah.
You know what they like even more than geography, Jonathan? Weather. They love it when we talk about the weather.
What about hockey? Do they like it when we talk about hockey?
Well, that's for the after show people. But I mean, who's the big goal scorer on the Kraken? Speaking of hockey, Barons or something like that. Bernays,
the top goal scorer.
Yeah, who's the guy on the Kraken? That's
like McCann. Like no.
At the Hockey Hall of Fame, they've got a couple of sweaters in the window. They've got like a couple of Gretzky ones. One was Gretzky with the 99. It's not the same size. I'm not sure what uniform that was from, but they've got like, Matthews and then some dude 16 or something like that on the Kraken, and then some other guy from like just in the window at the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'm just like, why is Seattle? I mean, is it Seattle Kraken is because they're like a new team or something? Like, why is there such a push on that team? I guess it's the newest team in the league, right?
Yeah, I think that's more.
Number 19, Jared McCann might be who you're thinking of for if it was the leading goal scorer.
It was a B, a player with a B in the name.
Was it Marty Beniers?
Beniers, yeah, that sounds right.
Matty Beniers. He was, he's a good player. He had almost 80 points in 80 games this year. He's a good player.
Mm.
He's a young guy. This was his first. He was a rookie this year.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, number 10. He's like number 2 on the leading goals.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So carry on. Are we done with our fact check?
One last thing.
No. Okay.
One last measurement. It's 3.65 kilometers to walk from Front Street to the Lakeview. That's too far to walk for a meal. Just saying. Now, great restaurant. That's a long walk.
I do have to fact check you on a couple of things still, because I work downtown and I regularly go for walks at lunchtime and stuff like that. And I can walk from my office at Union Station to Queen Street and Nathan Phillips Square in 10 minutes.
Okay.
So it is conceivable that they could have. And
I used to work down the block from the Harbourfront Center, and Harbourfront Center from there over and then up to where they were at Yonge and Dundas Square it's a hike.
Yeah, it's 15 minutes. Yeah, it's. I do that every day, Jonathan, just for record. But
well, you're in far better shape than those people on Star Trek.
Or am I? I mean, they're off-worlders. Yeah, that's the other thing. Is like, okay, like I saw an interview with the dude talking about the fact that he get to play with this because this is a Kirk that's never been on Earth. Why was he able to stand up?
Yeah.
Well, actually, speaking of inertial dampeners. We're going to get into tropes later on, but that was one of the tropes that they talked about on. I found a site that listed up a bunch of tropes on Star Trek, and one of them was universal gravity, right? Like no matter what planet they went to, they could always stand up, right? And then they always had artificial gravity on whatever spaceship they were on, right? So, okay,
yeah, unless it was plot specific, like the deck plating has stopped working for artificial gravity. Or if it was like
their magnetic boots or whatever, yeah.
Or that one Deep Space Nine episode where they had somebody like a scientist or doctor or something come on board, and they couldn't take the gravity, the normal, quote unquote, normal Earth-like gravity. So they had all this like assistive, like wheelchair brace stuff, and they like turned off the gravity or lowered the gravity in her quarters so that she could breathe a little bit easier and not be crushed. So, to your point, unless it was specifically part of the plot, you just assume that people were noticing, is this what was it, 9.8 meters per second squared, or is this 9.7? Maybe it's as low as 9.6 and got a little spring in my step.
All right, well, let's move on to our headlines. I'm up first for once. Wow. So last week was a big weekend, right? I mean, it was like a 3-day weekend for us in Canada. It was a 4-day weekend for the people in the States, for a lot of people in the States, right? For some reason, the CBC took Friday off as their day off, and the rest of the country took Monday off. I don't know. But you would think, wouldn't you, that if you were releasing a movie around, July 4th holiday weekend, you're going to make some good bank, right? Wouldn't you think? Is that an assumption you would make?
Mm-hmm. Depends what kind of product you're putting out, Tim.
Well, what if you were putting out, like, the last Indiana Jones movie? Like, how about that one?
Wait, would it be starring an 80-year-old, over-the-hill, mumbling Harrison Ford?
Well, oh yeah. What's wrong with that? So Indiana Jones basically raked in about $60 million. Am I reading that right? Yeah, $60 million for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which puts it in 8th place of the top 10. What do you call it? First run? What's it called? Premiere weekend?
Yeah, opening weekends. Yeah.
Box office opening weekend. So of the movies this year, it's in 8th place. Creed was slightly below. Creed 3 was behind it. With Fast X beat it. John Wick Chapter 4 came in 6th. Little Mermaid at $95 million came in at 5th. Ant-Man and Quantumania, $106 million. I mean, these are not great numbers, but as far as I know, right?
No, I mean, these are way off of sort of pre-pandemic totals.
Right. Guardians of the Galaxy number 3 at 118. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse at 102.
120.
Sorry, thank you. 120. The number one movie, of course, was Super Mario Brothers. I almost said Superman. Super Mario Brothers, the movie, at $146 million. So they had a $300,000 budget for Indiana Jones or something like that.
They had a how much budget?
$300 million.
Oof, that's steep.
Yeah, like ouch, right? Like ouch. That's gonna
Does that
sting.
include all the marketing, or is that just
probably marketing?
Because seems like they've been marketing the heck out of it too, trying to get people drummed up and interested.
Yeah, yeah, and well, yeah. I just read. It's not in this article. I can't remember where I read that from, but yeah, I do remember seeing that it was like. I think the other story I saw on it referenced the fact that they only pulled in this amount of money, but they need to make that much. But mind you, there's the worldwide box office, and it's going to be running for a couple of weeks, right? So, but yeah, it's kind of a poor opening. But then again, like you said, this year we've got poor openings all around, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors that can add up to bad performance. But I think the biggest one is just that cinematic apathy, right? A lot of people just aren't going to the movies, and you properly highlighted that when you run down those numbers and you compare that to pre-pandemic, some of the monstrous numbers we were seeing out of things. I'll be really curious to see. I think that not my cup of tea, but
I know you're worried about the Tom Cruise movie. Admit it.
The Tom Cruise movie, I bet you, is going to be the biggest movie of the year. I bet you it is. I'd be shocked if it wasn't by the time.
Well,
it was done.
I think what was it? The Maverick one brought people back to the theaters. They're saying, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a big one. I think it's going to be a big movie that a lot of people want to see in the theaters, and I think that. Mind you,
I think Oppenheimer and Barbie are gonna kick butt too, though.
I don't know. Barbie, I could see having a really populist appeal. Oppenheimer's,
yeah.
It's edgy, I love Chris Nolan. I love the films that he makes. I think this is going to be a great movie. I've really enjoyed the trailer, and I'm hyped for it. But I'm not sure it has quite as big a populist appeal. I'd be shocked if it made a boatload of money. It's. Who wants to go?
It's not like a popcorn Guardians of the Galaxy, Chris Pratt running around like an idiot movie, right? So
yeah, like who wants to see the misery of trying to create the nuclear bomb and realizing, Oppenheimer, was absolutely angst-ridden by the fact that he had unleashed this on the world. So it's not exactly a humdinger and a great thing for everybody to be happy with, right?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting, because I think for the rest of his life he just kind of like ran around saying, "My God, this is the worst thing I've ever done." Right? So
I am become death.
We are crazy for using it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Didn't he quote? What was the famous quote? "I have become death, destroyer of worlds." That's not something you say lightly.
No, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, you guys were probably. Yeah, I know you guys lived through it. So because the threat of nuclear holocaust was...
Oh, yeah.
No, is that the right word?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. But the obliteration of the human beings with nuclear war was something you guys grew up with as well as me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until like Reagan and Gorbachev that they started dismantling the bombs, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was later. It was really kind of post Perestroika, and it wasn't until the late 80s.
90s, right? 90s,
yeah, I mean, it was the late 80s that we started to see it starting to come apart, and it was really just the fact that Russia ran out of money that became the big problem, right?
Yeah, right. And can you just imagine if, oh my God, the nut bars that are there now, or even between when Glasnost or what it was called and where we are today, there was that period of time where it was like every man for himself kind of thing, right? For a while. Pretty scary.
Mm-hmm. I guess spoilers for the picks, but somebody has Black Mirror, and there's an episode that I enjoyed, my significant other did not, that covers this very topic, doesn't it? We'll tease you there, and then you can watch listen to the rest of the show to get that.
Sure,
Stay tuned.
There,
it's all coming down.
Uh-huh. All right. Speaking of suicide, Jaime.
In things I didn't know were happening, and it's not exactly an obvious fit. There's a anime adaptation of the Suicide Squad characters called Suicide Squad Isekai. The trailer doesn't really have that much info. It's a very short trailer. It didn't have release windows. If you're wondering what is an isekai, well, let me tell you, kids, this is one of those common, I guess it's a genre of manga and anime where it means being in a different world of some sort. So you generally see either somebody has been transported into another world, like a high school kid is like, oh, I accidentally fell through the well and now I'm in feudal Japan, right? I'm in another world.
Oh, yeah. Or
the other kind of weirder, darker one is, I'm a loser. I accidentally get hit by a bus. I die and I'm reincarnated in another world. There's a lot of these different ones out there. It's absurdly popular. So if you haven't heard the word or the term isekai, now you know. So I'm going to assume that there is either a reincarnation or a visit another world kind of thing going on with this Suicide Squad thing, just from the name itself. I didn't see anything in the trailer that led me there. It was really just the name.
What I heard was multiverse. And I fell asleep immediately.
Yeah. Did you? Do you remember when animation was like bunny rabbits and butterflies and mice playing jazz and stuff?
No, but I do remember them trying to kill each other with chainsaws and frying pans.
That's true. While the mice were playing jazz in the corner.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. What's next, Jaime?
The headline here from Bloomberg is entertaining, and there's a few choice sort of sections I want to look at. So the title here from Bloomberg is Amazon CEO asks his Hollywood studio to explain its big spending. So it's got some interesting stuff. There's a wonderful little chart that shows that Netflix has 37.9% global platform demand share for all streaming originals. And a surprise, little squeaking out into number 2 is Prime Video. Remember, Netflix at 37.9%. Number 2 is 10.8% at Prime Video. And Disney Plus at 9.4%. Bigger drop down to 6.8% for Apple TV Plus. Hulu at 5.1%. Paramount Plus at 4.9%. And weirdly, HBO Max at 4.5%, and then there's a remaining 20-some%. So hypothetically, Amazon doing okay from one particular stat, but CEO Andy Jassy is like, what am I spending all this money for? And there's a great sort of thing that I feel like is the marketing team's fault here, right? I'm not saying they're not overspending in their production, but quote from the article, in the past 9 months, Amazon has released at least half a dozen pricey series that failed to deliver huge audiences. Daisy Jones and the Six, The Power, Dead Ringers, and The Peripheral all cost more than $100 million to produce, but failed to crack Nielsen's list of 10 most watched streamed programming in the U.S. Even The Rings of Power, at $400 million plus, a show that attracted a large audience, failed to hold on to most of its viewers over the course of the season, according to Hollywood Reporter. So let's just put Rings of Power aside, because I feel like that fits neatly into to this very show, and it's certainly a TV show we've talked about. have either of you heard of even one of Daisy Jones and the Six?
I watched Peripheral.
Power, Dead Ringers. Okay, you actually heard of and watched the Peripheral.
Well, Dead Ringers is a remake of an old Cronenberg movie too, which is why would I watch that?
Rachel Weisz was in the new version. I watched the trailer for it, but the original movie's messed up, and this looked also messed up, so it was not something for me.
Yeah, it's a girl instead of a boy this time. Yeah,
or twins. So you guys, even laying the groundwork that we're on a podcast, we talk about this sort of stuff.
Out of like 33% of this host group, 25% of the shows that you just mentioned.
Yeah, and we're not like the average person audience, right? We're folks who have a podcast where we talk about stuff.
And we all watch
like
these
this
channels, exactly. Yeah,
and it's like, dude, I couldn't even tell you what any of these were about or who was in them. We may have even talked briefly about them in like a headlines or something, but I feel like the bigger problem is the marketing team isn't doing its job to get this out to the average person who is like clearly watching stuff like Stranger Things or Succession or House of the Dragon or other things that excite sort of the average person. And if it's not just the marketing team, it could also be like when I go into Prime Video on my phone, on my Roku, on a Chromecast, like I see all sorts of stuff. I don't get promoted this sort of thing, or maybe not in an obvious enough way, right? So there's like you're spending the money, but like what's the point if nobody knows that this thing exists?
Well, so there's an interesting thing though. Like if I look at this pie chart, first of all, I look at this and I see, okay, at 37.9%, Netflix is a behemoth, right? But if you take Netflix off the chart, like just remove them from the thing, Prime Video is in second place. Admittedly, like, a third of the size, not even a third of the size of Netflix in terms of audience. But of all the Prime Video, Disney, Apple TV, Hulu, Paramount Plus, and Max, it's competitive with Apple TV and Disney, right? Like they're sort of neck and neck in terms of numbers, right? Netflix has been around forever. I mean, like, they've been around since they were like these things called DVDs that people used to get, right? So I mean, like, it's like, how can, I mean, as a business person, like being number two in this market is like being number one, because like it's like Apple trying to topple Microsoft. It's never going to happen. Apple may be the most valuable company in the world at $3 trillion market cap or whatever, right? But Microsoft has the larger base of installed computer operating systems, right? Like Apple can't compete with that. They may be kicking butt on phones, but you know what I mean? Like, so it's like trying to take, like Apple trying to take on Microsoft is as futile as trying to take on Netflix as a streaming service, right? That's how I look at this chart. Like there's no way these guys, like, and so I mean, like, and how do you get Prime Video? I get Prime Video because I belong to the Prime Club or whatever the hell you call it, right? So I get free shipping plus I get Prime TV, right? That's not the same. I pay more money, if you think about it, to Apple and to Disney, and if I had HBO and Paramount Plus, I would be paying them more money than I'm paying Prime. I mean, Prime is kind of giving away the milk with the cow, right? From that perspective, like, how do you guys get Prime Video? Like, are you a Prime member, Jaime?
Yes, I am a Prime member. Started originally for the shipping benefits, but critically, I knowingly elected to go with Prime. I think it's worth mentioning here, just to cast some potential aspersions on Prime Video, right, and add some doubt. So you may not be aware in Canada, but in the US of A, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, has issued a lawsuit against Amazon for accusing it, and these are all allegations, accusing Amazon of tricking millions of customers into signing up for its Prime subscription service through deceptive user interface designs.
Really? Really?
So if you see where I'm getting at, that doesn't necessarily mean that, people are watching Prime Video more than they should, but they certainly could, right? If somebody is like, hey, I heard about this Jack Ryan thing. Oh, look, it's free. Yes, it is quote unquote free. You didn't realize that when you bought that other thing, you got tricked into to subscribing to Prime. So there, there's a little bit of leeway here where like maybe Disney Plus is the true number 2. It's really hard to know without that confounding factor.
Well, the other thing too is like if you ask me to rate my services based on what I like, what I prefer, I personally would put Apple TV Plus first, and I would put Disney like very close to second. I probably would go like Paramount Plus and Netflix would be the next ones, and then Prime would probably be my fourth or fifth choice, right? I do watch a lot of Prime shows, but there's a lot of stuff on Prime that I just like. I mean, they have really weird documentaries which I watch from time to time, but it's not my go-to for a sort of streaming service, right? Maybe because I mean, like I was around, I've been using it since. Like, I mean, Man from High Castle was like pretty much the only thing worth watching when it first came out, right? It's taken a while for Prime to sort of get going. I mean, what I like about Prime though is now they have things like Everything Everywhere All at Once, and they've got some first run movies in there, right? And there are some good shows. I mean, it's funny like how many times I go to the theater and see an Amazon production in the cinemas, right?
They won Oscars, right? They won for By the Sea, Manchester by the Sea, won Best Picture.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. That was a good example. Yeah. I don't know. How do you guys? Where do you position the shit? Because we've done this on our Spocky Awards every year. We've asked people how they rate the different systems, and Prime doesn't come out as a number one, even though it's sitting by the numbers in second place right now.
Yeah, I think that one is. I think Jaime is right. I think it's definitely a product of the combination package that you get. If they basically said, "Hey, for half the price, you could get just the quicker deliveries and all the bonuses that come with being a Prime member around getting faster service, access to special sales and stuff like that. And, you pay a little bit more and you get all of the streaming services. I bet you they would lose a lot of their subscriptions on that end pretty fast. So it is really, you're kind of, it's completely misleading because it's not like anything else. It would be like if Disney Plus was like, yeah, and you also get free tickets to Disneyland while you do this, like, or if Netflix was like, hey, hope you're enjoying Netflix, by the way, come down to visit, Stranger Things land, or, it doesn't seem like a level playing field as far as market penetration. It can claim to be the second biggest, but really, like, they're just offering something so different in the bundle that they have.
So I mean, I just did some quick math on it. So I think I pay about $80 a year for Prime, I think, right? That's like $6 a month, right? Like, the other services aren't $6 a month.
No, but then you're also you're getting more value out of it because you are getting faster delivery, you are getting, all the other things that come with it.
I would spend way more on shipping than we probably place like 10 orders a month easily, like to Amazon, so yeah.
And Amazon, as my son is wont to point out, Amazon in the United States is infinitely better as far as the amount of products you can get compared to Amazon Canada. So many more, sellers, so many more products. So, I mean, we're not even getting that full service up here for your dollar.
So, what are these? These numbers are based on what? Oh, demand share?
It's a really weird title. So, Global Platform Demand Share for all streaming originals. Global.
Okay.
First quarter of 2023.
Oh, and streaming originals too. This isn't just like everything in the catalog, because
like
Disney
Friends and Seinfeld
that, right?
and The Office are not a factor here. Otherwise, probably Peacock shoots way up there. I think that's where they have it again.
I found the number on here the most interesting, Jaime, was the 20+% that are other, and you're right. I think like things like Peacock are in there, but that's a very significant market number for a lot of other smaller things, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's certainly room there if you wanted to become, I have no idea which it would be nice to see the other services broken out, to see, like, would it be plausible to, Thanos collecting the Infinity Stones, like, create a 20% monster? You would shoot up to number 2, right? If you merged, what's even out there? If you merged, like, Tubi and Crunchyroll and, is there AMC Plus, just keep acquiring these smaller ones and add them up.
Well, and we've talked about that, right? The idea that eventually the way this logically ends is more bundling and more acquisitions, right? Like, that just seems to be the logical direction for this. It is funny because Apple TV Plus, according to this, is just a little shy of 7% of the market. But they could pay cash for Netflix right now.
Who could?
Apple.
Oh, Apple, yeah.
We talked about, I think we talked about this last year, but, we talked about the value of Disney and Amazon. Apple couldn't just outright buy those products, but they could buy the market leader with, like, the liquid cash they have sitting in Ireland right now.
Yeah. Never mind, just where all the other cash they have at Tim Cook's house, right?
Yeah.
It's also worth pointing out that, like, it's kind of almost an arbitrary distinction to split out Hulu and Disney instead of putting them together. As a, like, yes, Hulu is its own entity, it is its own streaming thing for sure, but Disney basically owns because of the controlling interest in Hulu. So you combine those together, you get, 14.5%, and they combined go into number 2 ahead of Prime. So it's a really weird sort of world. And the last thing I'll say here with Amazon and how it's spending is they're certainly thinking of cinematic universe, because there's a line right underneath the graph that says that Citadel didn't work out the way they wanted it to, but it really started as more as a business premise of, what if we had a global series that could be in multiple locations and have country-specific spin-offs? Is a loose paraphrase of what they say here. So that didn't really start as, like, a creative endeavor. It started as, like, how can you bootstrap sort of a cinematic universe concept? And maybe that's why it didn't do as well, because it's really hard to do that. You kind of more want to plan to make it available, but not necessarily force it, I think.
Yep. So, sidebar. So, I know we may have discussed this before, but have you guys checked out Pluto TV?
Occasionally. Sometimes it's more like
I think I have it as
sort of stuff.
I think I have it as an app on the Apple TV app here, but I discovered it, like, basically it's streaming like old classic TV shows. Like, if you want to watch Doctor Who, they run every Doctor Who on a Doctor Who channel. There's no advertising and there's no charge for the service. I don't understand what the business model is, but you can watch classic TV, on Pluto TV right now. Don't have to sign up for anything like that. I don't recall signing anything or whatever. You just flip on the channel and start watching it. It's really cool.
And is it commercial based? Like, is there commercials?
No, there's no commercials. No, nothing. Like, I don't know what they're selling, or like maybe they're I'm being indoctrinated in some cult or something. I don't know, but But like every time I go,
had regular ad breaks. Maybe it's changed since I've last looked at it. Then
I don't. Maybe there might be, but yeah, it's like I've flipped by and watched stuff that I used to watch in the '70s and stuff like Carol Burnett's show and. It's just the oddest collection of stuff. It's nothing like, you kind of just get in there and you start, doing the channel flip until you find something to watch, right? But and you can mark like the Doctor Who channel as your favorite, and it's not like the Doctor Who stuff we've never been able to just go and find, Jonathan. Like, it's like the the Pertwee stuff and the Third Doctor, Fourth Doctor. I've watched some of the stuff from the '80s which I'd never seen before, right? Or those weird doctors, right? Yeah, it's just totally weird, but yeah, free. It just apparently, I mean, like, I would watch a commercial for that. I mean, like, it's better than what's on cable TV, right? So
yeah, and it's probably one of those ones in that 20% that we were talking about.
Yeah, maybe. Well, it's not, but that was for those numbers for new content, though, right?
Yeah, I suppose that's
So this
true. I
is-
don't know if they have any new content at all.
No, I wouldn't. Nothing. Everything's like old from like 60s, 70s, and 80s, right?
Yeah.
Check it out if you haven't checked out Pluto. Link in the show notes. Back to you, Jaime.
Yeah, I don't know if you all are fans of the Strange Planet webcomic series, like on Instagram, about a couple of aliens living their alien life on Earth and not totally understanding our customs or having really weird
Like the
almost-
Coneheads?
yeah, like the Coneheads, almost mechanical kind of thing. It's very much in that sort of style. Apparently, I don't know if we talked about this before. I apologize if my memory is bad, but the Strange Planet animated series will start streaming on Apple TV Plus in August. Apparently, August 9th is the premiere.
Yeah, the strip is really funny. He's got a great sense of humor. My son was a big fan. He actually turned me onto it when he first started getting into social and discovered it and kept sending me these little cartoon strips. And yeah, it's a laugh. I like the ones where he's pointing out the quirky observations about the pets and stuff like that. Always make me laugh.
Yeah, like there's one I'm reading here. It's like you and me going to the movies. Can we observe a fictional narrative? We can. Will you remain conscious? I will not. Will you describe the portions I miss? I will. Tomorrow, as per our custom.
Well, that is our custom. What did I miss? Not much.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. One more, Jaime.
Yeah, I was wondering where the Super Mario Brothers movie will end up. And apparently, it's coming to Peacock on August 3rd. It can stream exclusively on Peacock.
Well, that doesn't help us at all.
US.
Yeah,
In
I'm
the
like,
US.
well, I guess Twisted Metal, this article mentions. I'm like, all right, sure. If I hold out till October, I can watch Five Nights at Freddy's, which we mentioned last episode. So maybe I can find a way to binge these things together for the 1 month subscription price of Peacock. The Lopez calculation, right? Like,
Yeah, Lopez
how do I do this the
calculus, yeah.
cheapest possible way for these outliers?
Yeah, that's a good plan. So when you set up like one of these things that you create your account, right? You watch it. Do you cancel your account or you just put it on hold? And like, what happens when you want to come back? Do you just use the same login?
Let me think about this. So I think most services let you either pause or cancel your subscription. It still lets you log in, but you basically can't do anything other than ooh and ah at the titles you could be watching if you were paying instead of, being a cheap mooch. Or you can also, of course, go restart your subscription, but they don't really do much without the paid subscription.
Yeah, it's funny, like I ride my bike to work these days, right? So I have an actual bike in the garage and stuff like that, and I have somewhere to lock it secure at work, so I don't have to worry about it getting stolen or whatever. But occasionally I want to ride a bike, and in Toronto we have these city bikes. You probably have them in Seattle too, where you go and you pay for a membership and you ride for whatever length of time, right? But if you're like a tourist, or if you're like me and you just need a one-off, right? I can pay an extra $1 for like a pay-as-you-go plan, and I pay the same amount of money as I would if I was like riding it per day, but I don't have to create a membership per se. Like I have an account, right? And I just, I have to give them a $50 deposit or whatever. I would do that for these kind of services if they had like hey, I just want to drop in, watch maybe a day of TV or a couple of hours of TV. Because I want to watch this thing. I guess it's the same thing as renting something from Apple TV or whatever, but...
Well, and for the
like
cost,
for these services,
you could almost do that for like the month. I think, depending on what you're into, things like...
But then you'd have to be like Jaime. You'd have to have like a whole bunch of shows lined up, ready. Okay, I got to wait till this series comes out, and all the shows are released, so I can sit down and binge it.
Yeah. Yeah, you would have to pick the right window. But I mean, so Black Mirror just dropped on Netflix, and I think it's a series we all enjoy. Can you tell me what the next thing that's coming on Netflix that you're dying to see is? Like, could you do without it for like 3 months, 4 months, 6 months?
Probably. I would like it would be. I think Disenchanted would be one I would come back for.
Yeah, Stranger Things.
I could probably skip Stranger Things. It hasn't been like super duper, like it's not compelling to me. Ozark would have been something I would come back for sure, but it's done, right? Yeah. What else? What did they put on Netflix? Do we have like what Rings of Power?
No, Rings of Power is on Amazon.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's my point, right? Like there's so much fragmentation that I think the Lopez calculus is becoming a very logical calculus as far as how to do these things. You don't need to have them all the time unless you have kids or you are retired or you are infirmed in some way. You don't have enough time for all the services you probably already have. I know I don't. So could you cut it down to like one service and just rotate them every couple of months? Yeah, I think you probably could. It's honestly what it comes down to is, do you want to be part of the conversation in the moment? Do you want to be able to jump on a podcast or listen to your favorite podcasters? All three of us. Do you want to, be a part of the conversation on social media? Do you want to, be back around the water cooler if you're back in the office? Do you want to have those kinds of moments? Because in a lot of cases, even now, there's such fragmentation. The number of people I talk to are like, hey, what are you watching? This, and this. I've only heard of 2 of those, and I don't know. I haven't watched any of those. What are you watching? This, and this. And like, none of those either. Like, there's so much fragmentation in the market right now that even that conversation's kind of dying. So again, what's the urgency? Unless you're doing kind of what we're doing, what's the urgency to have 6 services that you pay a combined, $50 a month for?
Yeah. No idea. You just reminded me that, did you know that the Tour de France is not on Canadian TV this year, or not easily accessible?
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, I watch it every year.
Do you really?
I used to, but Carol watches it, and it's just like, well, the playoffs end, right? And then what else are you going to watch, like, mindlessly for a month, right? Or 2 weeks, or whatever it is, right?
One of the 6 streaming services you subscribe to each month?
Yeah, it's not on any of those.
Yeah. Huh.
I can't figure out where it is. Flow Bikes. What's Flow Bikes? Flow Bikes TV. No idea what that is. Anyway, I know it's on in the States, but in Canada it's not. Anyway, speaking of the Hugo Award,
which we just were. So they announced today the nominees for the Hugo Awards. For those of you who do not know what the Hugo Awards, they are sort of the biggest deal in the world of science fiction fantasy as far as books, films, TVs, and a few other assorted areas. The awards are going to be handed out in October this year. There was 25,000 different things entered in this. I will not do all of them, but I thought I'd pull out some of the big ones. So again, they do books, they do all kinds of stuff. I thought I would focus in on the stuff that we are most sort of familiar with. So I wanted to flag the... It's interesting the way they do it. So best dramatic presentation short form tends to be primarily television shows. Best dramatic presentation...
I thought it was all just... I thought they were just sci-fi writing. I didn't realize it was like movies and stuff.
It is still honoring writing. The first credit that they give when they talk about a film and things like that is the writer, followed by the director. But so they break it into best dramatic presentation short form, that's mostly TV, best dramatic presentation long form, which is movies, but it also is seasons of TV, which I think is really interesting. So I'll just rip through these. So short form, so this is mostly TV. So this is for specific episodes of TV. It's not for an entire run or a series, in totality. It's one episode. So the Andor episode One Way Out was one of them. The Andor episode Rick's Road, which was the finale, also nominated separately. The Expanse episode Babylon's Ashes, For All Mankind's Stranger in a Strange Land, She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Whose Show Is This, and Stranger Things Chapter 4 Dear Billy. Those were the specific episodes, so that way they can focus in on the writer and the director of those individual episodes. So some good stuff in there. Definitely stuff that we've all watched.
Yeah.
And then for the long form, again, a lot of movies. So Avatar, The Way of Water, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Nope, Severance Season 1, so that's for the entire season, and Turning Red, the Pixar movie. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting, the way they sort of break that down. They do the same thing for comic books. So it's best graphic story or comic. So this could be a graphic novel or an individual issue. So a lot of these ones are collections of, a 5 or 6 comic book arc that sort of tells a story. But the Cyberpunk 2077 Big City Dreams. So that's a Dark Horse book they put out in conjunction with the video game. The adaptation of Dune, Monstrous Volume 7, Once and Future Volume 4, Saga Volume 10, and Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which is apparently what they're going to base the new Supergirl movie that's coming out in the next couple of years on. So yeah, definitely lots of cool stuff. I know you're dying to know this, but you can get a Superwoman Barbie doll right now. Ooh. Well, now you know what to put on my Christmas list. Anyways, we'll have the link in the show notes. There's a bunch more categories if you're way into science fiction fantasy. There's a ton of good stuff in here. And I always like these lists because for me, it just sort of pops into my head, hey, maybe I should be reading this book, or maybe I should check out that show, just because this is one of those, in the weeds nerd fandom things. The Hugo Awards are really, they're really focused on this genre for science fiction fantasy. So there's lots of stuff in there for people who like that stuff.
That's cool. All right. Are we at that part of the show now?
Yes, indeed.
All right. Let's get in the shuttle and beam down to, or transport down to the surface in our away mission as we talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 4, Among the Lotus Eaters. So this episode is an away mission one where they return to Rigel 7, I believe Rigel 7, right?
Rigel 7.
Where they had a previous mission where they kind of like had to get out of Dodge real quick because they got attacked by the natives, and apparently they left some tech behind.
And not just some tech.
So some Star Trek tech, yes. And so I mean, so they have to go and clean up their own mess, as Christopher Pike puts it, right?
Mm-hmm. Jaime, do you have a pitch?
I figured somebody would have a more real, straightforward one. I went with Remember the 5th of November as my closest thing that I could get, just to be cheeky.
Okay.
Yep. I had somewhere in between. I had Strange New Worlds goes back to to the strangest one of all, and the original one at that, which we will get into our Easter eggs.
Yeah, I went with Strange Old World.
Yeah.
So we talked a bit about tropes last week, and
the memory loss.
A couple of tropes in memory loss. That's true. Memory loss was another Star Trek trope, but big one in this one. But I was thinking undercover missions. They always had to put on the uniforms. Like Riker even had his forehead done at one point, right? Mm-hmm. And Kirk became a Romulan at one point, so that they could infiltrate and be seen as a native, right? So they do that a lot. But the big trope on this one was I kept looking at the time as we got closer to the end of the episode, thinking, are they going to have a TV continued? But nope, they solved the problem in 40 minutes.
It's a patented Jaime Lopez hold my beer episode.
Yes, I am. What's her name? Ortega. I fly the ship.
Yeah, that's right. I am the cast and crew of this show. We will land it before it reaches an hour.
Do you know who the hero of this episode was? As I was watching it, I was thinking, this is the one thing that the crew of the Enterprise had that the people on the planet didn't have.
But the computer.
The computer.
Yeah.
Yes, the computer would told them who they are.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I guess it's like the container, right?
I'm gonna blow through Pew Pew Pew, which I had the Christopher Pike one-man mission to storm the castle and defeat the evil High Lord. That I thought was he just so hell-bent on getting that over. I thought that was really kind of fun. There was some good stuff in there. The La'an with the sledgehammer was kind of fun too.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah,
I had that as my my Pew Pew Pew, the hammer time with La'an.
Yeah. But I think this one really it's about the Easter egg. So I wish I could take entire credit for it. It tweaked in my mind. I just kept thinking Rigel 7. Why do I know Rigel 7? Why do I know Rigel 7? So I looked it up as soon as the episode was over because I knew it, but I could not place where I knew it from. So I've linked in here this lovely article by the good folks at Inverse, who I will give fair credit to because they've done an excellent job here. This is an article by Ryan Britt at Inverse. Good job, Ryan. So the reason why we remember Rigel 7 is because they mention it in the original pilot, The Cage.
Right.
And they specifically say in that episode that, so in that episode, Leonard Nimoy has a limp. That is referenced in this episode. The mission that they went on where they lost the 3 crewmen was mentioned in the original pilot as, we had a tough time on this mission. We lost our yeoman. And Spock got hurt. So they are tying this episode right back into the very beginnings of Star Trek by looping it all together on this mission where, it's right after the original mission that they reference in this episode where they lost the 3 crewmen and they had a tough time on this planet and Spock got hurt. This is supposed to be like them returning to that moment right before the original pilot, which is really neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And, they don't mention the yeoman by name, but now, of course, we know that it's Yeoman Zach. And, that was, I thought, a really fun way to sort of tell a story. Again, like, you don't need to know that. You don't need to know that. Doesn't matter. But if you know that, and that's part of the history, like, that's the kind of love that we're getting in this series. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of care that they seem to be really putting into this particular series. Again, you guys know I don't like prequels. I don't like them at all. But I love this show. I love it. It's so good. It doesn't disrupt. It doesn't get in the way of itself, but it pays so much love and respect to everything that's come before. They just do a masterful job of it.
Yeah, and they keep throwing back because like even when Una says to Ortega, "I flew the ship before you did."
Yeah.
Right? She was actually at the con in the cage.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, perfect. Just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, good show.
The other Easter egg that I caught was, and I don't know if you guys saw the same thing, so when they pan across the 3 faces of the crewmen that they lost when they originally went to Rigel 7, they reference that. And
really? Yeah.
They pan across and they start from the right and they cut to the left. So the first person you see, their name is listed as M. Aberth. The one in the middle is listed as C. Plummer. Which I thought was a lovely Easter egg for us, particularly.
And
then the one beside that was Zed Wen, and that turns out to be Zach. And so, of course, that's the one we linger on the longest because that one comes back around, which is again, it's good filmmaking. But yeah, I when I saw C. Plummer as the middle name, I was like, bless you people, bless you all.
My Easter egg was the vague memory of Lotus eaters, and going into the title, and I had to look on the interwebs to see what this was. It's from the Odyssey, Homer's poem, and this was an island of people who all they wanted to do was eat these lotus plants. They lived blissfully, and they didn't want to do anything else, and so that's part of the struggle, is to keep the crew from just consuming the lotus and staying there. And that seems pretty applicable here, where you've got this mysterious radiation that is causing the people to forget who they are. They retain some basics, but certainly the one guy that they encounter, one of the field folks, is like, yeah, it's fine. It's better to just live blissfully and not have to worry about the pain of remembering people's deaths and stuff.
Yep. The other one that I didn't put in here that is, again, straight from this Inverse article, it mentions down near the bottom that as well as tying into the cage, there's actually a little nod to this place in Picard Season 3, where Picard and Riker are talking about a mission that they went on in which their communications were down, right? Do you remember that part of where they were like trying to figure out how to communicate without communicators? And Riker says the planet that they were on is Rigel 6, and Picard corrects him and says, actually 7.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, more ties, and not just ties into the original, but ties into the newest, which is, again, bonkers.
Yeah. Well, Rigel 7 is like if you've been watching Star Trek all these many years, it's kind of like, oh yeah, Rigel 7, and there's a whole bunch of planets that they go to a lot in the stories. And yeah, Rigel 7 is obviously one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And so Rigel 7, the other thing that will tweak in your minds, The Simpsons, for those of you who are Simpsons fans, Rigel 7 is the planet that Kang and Kodos come from. The two aliens that are recurring characters. They've been in a slew of the Halloween episodes. They've been in a bunch of different ones. They're the two green slimy monsters with the big fangs, and they fly around in their spaceship. And yeah, Kang and Kodos are from Rigel 7.
Nice. Yeah, of course they are.
Yep.
And why wouldn't they be?
Yep. My big question for this episode was, so Yeoman Zach Wen, or High Lord Zacharias, depending on when you catch him, he is left behind on this mission. He survives. He somehow uses his Star Trek Starfleet equipment that's left behind to take over, and has ruled for several years as the High Lord of this place, making the people stay outside and forget, and chop wood for him and break rocks for some reason. And my question was, what's the punishment? So they make a point of saying at the end of the episode, because they have the scene where we see Captain Batel come back, and that ties in the emotional arc with Pike, where they break up at the beginning and they get back together at the end. She says, I picked up this prisoner from you, and they're clearly going to take him back for his, trial or whatever. What's the punishment for breaking the Prime Directive that badly, taking over a world, and then doubling down by trying to wipe the minds of the people who come after you? What is an appropriate punishment? Is prison enough? Where's the line on that one?
Well, what they could do? They could do what they did with what's her name? Michael Burnham. Yeah. They could transport him to a penal colony and then promote him to a captain of a starship in a few years.
Well, that does sound very Starfleet.
Yeah, I think so. Redemption, right? They're all about forgiveness.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I think. Well, to me, Prime Order 1 or whatever the other name of it is, the Prime Directive, General Order 1, is it? Mm-hmm. General Order 1?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you would think that's like talking about Fight Club, right? That's got to be like the cardinal sin of the Federation, right? I'm sure there's all kinds of repercussions. So I don't think it's going to go lightly on him. He probably should have let Pike kill him, or shoot him, right? But yeah, no, it's interesting. And it's kind of funny because he kind of whimpers there at the end, right? He's got all this power and glory, and he just Pike just walks in and pews his way in, right? So
yeah,
and they leave him to defend the place himself, sort of thing. That doesn't sound like a very smart megalomaniac, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any other questions, Jaime?
The only sort of question I have longer term that isn't catastrophically important, it's really rather minor, but in this episode, Pike, sort of starts committing, to some degree at least, with Captain Batel. But we know that they must break up, so now my question is, how do they break up? Because that's not who he ends up with. Spoilers for something that was shown in the 60s. But we know that, his fate is different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Which brings us to our great quotes, right? Everyone deserves joy in their life.
Wait. Before I have a question.
Okay.
So when he finally beats what's his name, and he goes and pulls the bear skin off of the box.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that was left behind in that little footlocker is in pristine condition and not distributed throughout the planet and dissected, and it's all just the medical equipment is all just sitting there waiting to be used, right? So, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea is that Zacharias is not a noble king. He's keeping it all for himself in case something goes wrong with him, right?
I guess, maybe. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's true. But it was also those other tech there. It was a tricorder and...
Yeah. The real question is, why is it just in a box in the middle of the throne room? Doesn't he have a bedroom or something? A safe? Nothing? No?
Was that the first time we've seen like an original series style tricorder? I think it is, right?
Yeah, maybe because they have a different one now.
Yeah, because in this show, because in this show, this is the prequel to the original series, right? And every single episode that they went on, they had that little. Everybody would have a tricorder with them, and the doctor would have the little sort of cigarette lighter that he would like hover over you and figure out what was wrong with you, stuff like that. And the hypodermic needles that they used to have, that was all over the first series, right? So
yeah,
as well as the phaser weapons and stuff like that, right?
Yep. All right. Well, now I'm gonna do the quote.
All right, fine.
Everyone deserves joy in their life, even a captain. That was from Una, and that obviously is the big arc of this episode. When Uhura, they're trying to figure out if she's contracted some sort of viral or bacterial infection that's affecting her memory, and then they realize it's happening to other people. She says it's definitely not the oatmeal. That was a good one.
And what'd you eat for breakfast? Yeah.
Ortega's, when she's lost her memory and she's in her quarters and is trying to figure out, what's going on. She says, "Stop the rocks. Stop the rocks." But the quote of the episode is definitely, "I'm Erica Ortega's. I fly the ship." I feel like we didn't talk enough about the Erica Ortega's of it all, because it was kind of, as much as it was Pike's episode, it was also kind of her episode, right? This is the first time we've kind of centered in on the Ortega's character this season. She hasn't really got a lot of play.
It's her log, and she's talking about how she gets to go away on this away mission, and then she gets to put the plug pulled out from, or rug pulled out from under her feet, because she has to go and navigate through the rocks, right? And well, that was another trope too, that the A shift is always on duty. Yeah. Like there's only one pilot in the entire Federation that can fly this ship through these stones, right?
Yeah.
And that's her. Well, so she can't go on the away mission.
Not everybody can thread the needle like Erica Ortega's.
That's true. She's got to thread the needle. That's right.
But yeah, no, I think it's definitely important to give a shout out. Melissa Navia obviously is the actor who plays Ortega's, and she was good. She was really fun in this episode. She had a lot of range. She was definitely, she was convincing, as, cocky as she often is, that sort of, that swagger that she carries around. But then, she flipped it on to like the confused and the scared, and then, finding her gumption again. And yeah, she was really good.
Mm-hmm. And there was some interesting quotes from Spock too, "I believe you can."
That's yes, that's him being it's the part where he's like, "This is not time for emotion." He's like okay, never mind.
Yeah. And also the when he tells her about the rocks or whatever, he says like, "I didn't create the data,"
yeah,
because she's like, you got to learn when not to say something,
Yeah. Well, poor Erica is supposed to be going on her first away mission, gets all geared up, and then gets left on the transporter outside,
including wearing the hat. She's wearing the hat.
Yeah. I wonder though, because they make a point of saying that it's the helmets that the warrior cast in on the planet. That's what prevents them from losing their memories, right? I wonder if her hat had any of that ore in it or whatever, because she says it's all about the hat, right?
Right. That's true. It was a giveaway, right?
Yeah. Like, would she have, if she'd gone on the mission, would she have been like, "What's wrong with you guys? My hat is bombing and I'm fine."
Yeah.
I like the Mbenga part of this too. Like, I feel like that's got to be building to a crescendo over the course of the season, because we've had Mbenga being like off. We saw him obviously, going, steroid rage a couple episodes ago, and we've definitely seen him struggling through this season. Clearly not quite, obviously last year he had a pretty complex arc with his daughter and all that stuff. But this year he's clearly having a tough time with sort of his violent past versus his medical self and stuff like that. There's got to be a full Mbenga episode somewhere in this season. I hope there is, because he's a great actor, and it's been a lot of fun to sort of follow along with him.
I wonder what the swipe under his eyes about, because he's done that a couple times in the show, and it's sort of a signal between him and this one, La'an, right? So
yeah, but it's the same thing he did with Chapel a couple episodes, 3 episodes back.
Yes,
right? Yeah. Yeah, there's a story there for sure.
Yes, we're going to find out, I'm sure, at some point.
Tonight in Arkansas, there's a mother tucking in her daughter and turning off the light. A business owner is burning the midnight oil. An at-home dinner date is plating up possibility, and it's all happening under one roof. How? The power of a conversation, like the one John from Integrity Solutions had with First Horizon Bank about his vision for a sustainable mixed-use building. Now it's not just words, it's life. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/John. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Sure. So yes, on to Secret Invasion, man.
Mm-hmm. Halfway through. This is the third of 6 episodes. We are now halfway through Secret Invasion. My elevator pitch. Nick Fury goes into the revenge business, and business is booming.
I could tell I was in a bit of a mood. I went with, keep my daughter's name out of your damn mouth.
What's that in reference to? Yeah.
Yep. This was a weird episode. It was in a weird episode in a continuing series of weird episodes in a continuing kind of, I don't know, somewhat. I'm just gonna say somewhat disappointing series. I like the ingredients are incredible in this show, and it's not Andor. It sure as hell is not Andor. As far as sort of spy thrillers go, it's kind of, and again, like there's moments like, there's been moments where Sam Jackson is great. There's tons of moments where Ben Mendelsohn's great. Olivia Colman has been great. Like there's so many like little moments and performances. But some of its parts not. It kind
of became an exposition episode in the middle there, right? Like when the two of them are sitting in the car just having a chat, like
mind you,
all the world's calm.
That's what I had as my best pew pew pew. I thought that the scene where we had Ben Mendelsohn as Talos and Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury going toe to toe about like their version of events back and forth was great. I thought that was great. Like that, the tension, the way they're pushing each other, but being careful not to push too far because they do really like each other and they do respect each other, but they're also mad at each other. I thought that was really, really well acted by those two. You're talking about
the scene in the bar or the scene in the car?
The scene in the car. The scene in the car. I mean, you're right. It ends really. That whole conversation really doesn't end until the bar. But the two of them are like the acting chemistry between the two of them is crackling. Like they're really good together. They really seem to bring it out in each other. And like the way that they're balancing the like friendship with the frustration and the anger that they're feeling. They both feel betrayed. They both feel scared. They're both, like that is a high watermark for the show for sure. But the slow burn of the plot and just the complexity of the plot is a lot. Jaime, did you have a different pew pew pew?
No, I had mine as Zachary and the UN plane being saved by the bell. I tried to make a really tortured thing. I couldn't stick the landing.
Well, you nailed your elevator pitch. You gotta take your wins, man. Take your wins. For the Easter egg hunt, there's a couple of good ones. So, last episode we talked about how it looked like they were, aiming to make Super Skrulls. They actually say the words Super Skrulls in this episode. And when Talos and Gravik are meeting in the art gallery, and Talos puts the knife through his hand, and we see Gravik pull his hand back, and then we see his hand go extremis, right? We see him using the extremis power, the healing power, right? That's from Iron Man 3. That's definitely, so he is already a Super Skrull in that way. We don't know if he has any of the other abilities or what his sort of deal is. I wonder in this very kind of grounded, maybe too grounded Marvel show, I wonder if we are going to finally get a little, super being kind of thing as it builds to a crescendo, or is this just always destined to be sort of a very grounded series? But the fact that he now has powers on top of being able to shape change definitely means we could see something interesting. The other Easter egg that I caught was at one point they mentioned Dreykov when it's at the beginning of the episode when Fury goes into the cafe in New York City and he meets up with Priscilla, who's eventually his wife, and they're talking about the mission she just went on, and she mentions Dreykov. Dreykov is the big bad guy from Black Widow. He's the guy who lives in the city in the sky. He's the Russian guy who has the Red Room and trains the Black Widows and does all that. So again, tying all of this history back together, because again, in this time frame too, you also have to think this, I think it was 1997, does it say? I think at the beginning, I think I read in my notes here. Yeah, 98. It says NYC 1998. NYC 1998, after the Dreykov mission, that could be lining up with when, maybe Fury out of this recruits a young Black Widow, or, you know what I mean? Like, there could be an allusion to a bigger Easter egg in there somewhere.
Right.
Jaime, any other Easter eggs?
No, I think the Super Scrolls is the only one that I saw, and the Extremis, burning thing.
Yeah. The big questions. So, if you're a Skrull and you live a long time, why would you age yourself when you're in disguise? I mean, I guess if you're establishing a long time alias or whatever, you could age yourself so that people don't get on to the fact that you don't age and therefore you must be an alien. But if she's just like hanging around their house somewhere, when she changes back, why wouldn't she just change back into like the hottest, youngest version of herself?
Yeah, then how much energy does it take to maintain that transformation, right? Because I mean, like, why would she why wouldn't she just like be a Skrull when the doors are closed and the windows are, shutters are closed, right?
Yeah, and I get the impression she does at the end of the episode. She switches back, she hears somebody coming in and realizes it's Nick, but I get the impression that when nobody else is around, she doesn't bother, right?
Yeah. And the other thing too, she does answer the question about him going to space and leaving her on the ground, right? So that was kind of an interesting interchange between the two of them, because you kind of wonder, like I don't know, awfully convenient to be able to go off to space for however long he was there and then just waltz back in and, have her accept him, right? But I guess that's the nature of the relationship. I guess like the two captains on Star Trek, they just accept it. That's part of it, right?
And the other question that I had was which I think I know the answer to, was that Rhodes on the phone at the end. He is listed in the credits, so I'm going to say yes, that was Don Cheadle on the phone at the end with Priscilla, and she's got the gun in her hand. The question is that Skrull Rhodes or is that Rhodes? Is she working, with the bad guys? Is she actually secretly working with, Rhodes on something else? I've vacillated. First episode, I was convinced Rhodes was a Skrull. Second episode, when he told the joke about carpet bombing, I was like, oh, well, that sounds like some kind of sardonic wit that Rhodey would have. So I thought, oh, no, it's probably actually Rhodey. And now I'm not sure again. So I guess that's what the whole series is supposed to be doing, is making you guess and make you feel sort of off kilter. But what do you guys think? Do you think that was think she's part of the conspiracy, or is this a red herring?
Well, I do like the theory of him being somehow involved, because he's too big a star to not have, a story in that sense, right? But I don't. It's an odd sort of thing with her, because I mean, she has this previous relationship with the young dude, Gravik, right? Yeah, because she was sort of his, and maybe Gravik versus Fury is kind of a revenge thing, because maybe Gravik sees Fury as having taken her away from him, right? So, as a young boy, right? I mean, she was actually, because they do meet in the beginning of the episode, or I guess in the prequel, or the setup, right?
Yeah. Questions, Jaime?
Yeah, my question was about Fury's wife. Is she going all Bourne identity? That's kind of what it sort of felt like, with the gun being in the safe deposit box.
But why do you keep a gun in your safe deposit box?
Well, isn't that that's the joke about guns for home safety, right? They're like, well, I'm a responsible gun owner. I keep my gun in a safe, and I keep the bullets in a separate location. And they're like, and somebody starts breaking in your door. You're like, you wait right there. I'm going to go and unlock my safe, and then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to get the bullets. You just wait right there.
I have to go to the bank. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in this case, like, I'm warning you, I'm armed. I just got to pop over to the bank first.
Is it a special gun or something, like with special bullets in it or something? Or was it used in a murder and she's trying to hide it?
Yeah, again, you'd think if you are married to Nick Fury and you live in a house with Nick Fury, don't you just pull like a lampshade over and something opens up and the wall reveals like an armory of some kind? Like, You're married to the
You would
world's
think,
most
yeah.
famous spy. Like, come on. He doesn't leave guns lying around. I assume there's like at least 100 guns in that house.
Yeah, maybe. Well, it's not his house.
Yeah, I guess. Well, it is England, so maybe no guns. Who knows?
Yeah. He went to space after all, yeah.
It's true. Well, then laser guns. Come on. All right, best quotes.
And what did they say? Yes, the quotes.
I thought this was a strangely poignant one from like not big character was this line from Dalton, the sort of second/third in command for Gravik. At the beginning, he's talking to the Beto, the young man we met at the beginning, and he says, "All faith is built on risk, so that's what we have to take." I thought that was a great line. From Priscilla when they're arguing, "Darling, you are Nick Fury. I have never harbored any illusions about the necessity of you going away, but staying away, that leaves a mark." That was a great line. She's really nailed that one too. I never cared much for golf, so I'm thinking I may take up revenge. That was Fury.
Yeah.
That was my quote.
Yeah, this is a great one. Use your words from Talos. That was pretty funny. And the truth's a mother dog, right? From Fury. Again, great play to put, that's what happens when you put Sam Jackson on a Disney Plus series. You truth's a mother dog, right? And my favorite line from the whole thing was, "Nobody calls me Nick, Bob." He's being, when he knows.
Yeah, when the gunpoint. Yep.
Yeah, when he knows to go in and bring the kid in as the hostage because the guy used the wrong name. Yeah, that was great. Any belief that our beloved Gaia is actually dead after being exposed as the traitor and shot in the chest at the end of the episode? She's lying very still, and there's a hole appearing in her chest. But do we know?
Well, is she a Super Skrull? If she is, then she could just spit the bullet out, right?
Well, that's the question, I guess. Like, we've already seen that he has the extremis powers. Do you think maybe she just like popped into the machine and gave herself the powers, and the next episode we just see a bullet like fall out of her chest and she gets up?
Yeah, don't know. She is a big star.
It seems strange to have somebody of her
caliber,
stature in for half of a series, especially when the arc is really, trying to heal the rift between her and Talos. It would be weird not to have the catharsis of finishing that.
Yeah. Well, plus whenever I see something like this, like Olivia Colman, I would expect to see her in future series, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why bring someone into the universe and then just have like why would they do that with what's her name, Emilia Clarke, and then have her lead the show after 3 episodes? Spoilers if you haven't been watching the show, but
yeah. I immediately, you'll see it in my notes here, I immediately wrote down fake, like fake death. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah. This is the problem. We talk about it all the time, like, my brain dissecting Hollywood plots. But again, it doesn't make sense to kill a major star there unless you're going for the shock value. And it wasn't really shocking because we kind of saw that that's what Gravik was doing to her all episode. So it wasn't like, oh my God, he's onto her. Like, it was like, well, yeah, of course he's onto her. Like, when she got on the motorcycle, she creeps out and there's like no guard there, and she sneaks out and she hops on the motorbike. Did anyone honestly think she was getting away? Like, there's no way.
No. Yeah.
Like, it played out exactly as I thought it would play out. I don't know that I saw him shooting her in the chest, but I definitely knew that her cover was blown and something was going to go off the rails there. But yeah, it
was too easy. Yep. Too easy for her to escape. Yep. Especially since there were no guards in the guard booth, like you mentioned, right? So when she's sneaking her bike out.
Yep. Well, let's tune in next week and find out.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Let's move to our watch list, if that's okay with you guys. Mm-hmm. Speaking of not being able to tune in next week, so my first thing up this week was the Black Mirror season 6. I got curious about this first episode. Everybody was talking about quitting their Netflix is over. But surprisingly, like, again, my big complaint about Netflix is I've gotten used to the idea that I'll watch a show, then I have to wait, digest it for a week and then get the next episode. Whereas Black Mirror, all 5 episodes dropped. Again, 5 is an odd number. I mean, odd number, and it's a strange number to have in terms of a season, because it kind of went real quick. Some really interesting episodes this time. Did you guys watch any of it, or have you watched Black Mirror yet?
I've watched a few episodes of it. I don't think I've seen everything yet.
Okay, yeah, it was like it's kind of, I took maybe over 2 days or 2.5 days. I watched them over the long weekend, right? But Yeah, I really enjoyed it, but it's odd. Like, I know they had like the one-offs. They had the Christmas one and they had the Bandersnatch one. And for some reason, Netflix has forgotten that I watched them before, because it started playing the one with Bryce Dallas Howard again, the one about getting so many likes, where she has to go to her friend's wedding and stuff, and starts to lose all her Insta points or whatever. Which was really still a good episode to watch again, even after all these years. But some interesting episodes. Speaking of Hugo Award winners, the one character in the middle series who kept reading the books, she was reading a bunch of Hugo Award winning. The Heinlein book she was reading was a Hugo Award winner. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, right? So I don't know if you guys. Anyway, Black Mirror season 6, definitely watch it. The other one is I went and saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny on the weekend. I saw it in IMAX, but I sat way back at the back of the theater, so I might as well just watched it in regular, but not have paid as much money. I enjoyed it. It was really good. I mean, it's not as. I mean, Crystal Skull is there are lots of gag points, right? Whereas this, I found this one entertaining. Kind of like the odd numbers are the better episodes, kind of like 1, 3, and 5 in this case. Because I'm to be honest with you, I'm not really a big fan of the second Indiana Jones. Which one is that one?
Temple of Doom. No chilled monkey brains for you?
Well, no, it wasn't so much of a chill monkey brains. It's just sort of, I mean, well, there's that cool series in the middle there where they tried to, because everything was done in practical effects back then, and they had that sort of little the coal mine scene where they whipping through the coal mines.
Yeah,
that was kind of cool the way they had to do that at the time. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't think that holds up in as much as good as it could. There's lots of this movie reminded me. I hate to say it a lot, like sort of the Mission Impossible car chases. There's impossible car chases you get in the strange locations like Morocco and things like that. I found the story was interesting. It would be interesting to see what you think about it when you eventually get around to watching it, John. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, and I do recommend that people go see it in the theater.
And yet that doesn't seem to be working out.
Yeah, no, as we said at the top of the show. Well, I mean, like it's gotten the problem is it's gotten lukewarm press, right? Like some people like it, some people don't, and the problem is as soon as anybody has anything negative to say about a show, people will just stay home. Well,
and again, we talk about. I think all three of us love the movie-going experience. We love to see things on the big screen. We like the part that I kind of am always a little torn about now is I don't like to go to a crowded theater, but then there's something that's very nice about going to a crowded theater where you're immersed in it together, the laughs, the oohs and ahs, those moments are what unite us, right? And it's not cheap to go to a movies nowadays, and so I get why people are like voting with their dollars. We talked about how that's how it should be, right? If you don't like the product, don't spend your money on it, and they will stop doing those things because it's all about making money. So
well, that said, it was kind of, it wasn't a super crowded theater. There was a lot of people in there, which is why I ended up sitting in the back row, but there was no engagement from the audience. I don't recall there being any super funny moment where we all guffawed at the same time. That said, when a couple of a month ago I went and saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I talked to the people in the theater. Everybody was like glad to be there and talking about it, and when did you see it? Have you ever seen it? Blah blah blah. Same thing with when I watched the Star Wars one. What was that one called? Return of the Jedi, right? People in the audience were actually talking to each other about, can't wait to see this. And then afterwards, people stuck around for the titles. But yeah, this one was like, you wouldn't even know that there was anybody else in the theater other than, some munching of popcorn and that kind of stuff. But it was a strange experience. But, but mind you, I went on a middle of the afternoon matinee kind of thing, right? So yeah, it was a slow weekend for movies.
I think, there's definitely a case to be made that, instead of looking backwards, maybe it's time to look more forwards, right? Like maybe that's the problem.
Actually, yeah, speaking of looking backwards, there is one really interesting thing about this one from a technical point of view, and that is it tells the story in 3 different time periods, right? So it goes back to the 30s, or I guess 30s or 40s, whenever. I guess it would be 45, I guess, when Hitler was in hiding.
44.
At the beginning of the... Sorry?
44.
44? Yeah, at the beginning of the movie. And then they go back to when Phoebe Waller... And I think Indiana Jones takes place... I think it was... in 1969 is when it takes place in this one, because the astronauts are in New York City for the parade. So that would have been just after, probably summer of 69. That's the middle part of the movie. And then there's a flashback scene where they go back 10 years earlier, right? And so they have to de-age Harrison Ford and Matt's what's his name?
Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen, yeah. They de-age him and Toby Jones, right? Because all three of those are now older men, and they get de-aged. And I got to tell you, like, I looked at this, like, because I was thinking about this, what you were saying at the very beginning, because the very first part of the movie is you see Indiana Jones in Nazi uniform, or in German uniform, and he's trying to infiltrate the army, right, to get hold of this artifact, right? And as he's speaking, I'm thinking, okay, this is Harrison Ford doing the dialogue, right? So I'm expecting to hear the grumpy old guy that he is now, right, saying the lines. But they actually, I don't know if it was him or they did something about de-aging his voice too, but he actually sounded like the guy you saw doing the movie in the 80s. And he looked like the guy in the 80s. Like it wasn't like that, Rogue One, where they had the sort of, Grand Moff Tarkin and Princess Leia, which were just complete simulacrum. What's the word?
Simulacrum.
Thank you. Those they weren't fakes. They weren't like completely CGI. So he was de-aged, and whether it was him acting or they had a body double or whatever, but it really worked. Right, it really worked really well when they had those scenes, just from a technical point of view. So like that was plausible, right? And amazing. I just kept looking at his face, kind of find a flaw, but I couldn't,
Well, that's good, because that was definitely an area I was concerned about. Obviously, whether or not Mr. Ford at 80 could still capture the magic, but also just whether or not it would be a CGI fest, just given that it's awfully hard to have an 80-year-old person and have them in the movie as an action star when they clearly can't do everything they once could, right? Not to impugn him at his age, but
people have complained about the Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian that he didn't look authentic, even though it was Mark Hamill's voice and another body double, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, enjoyable movie. It was money well spent.
Well, on the weekend, instead of seeing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny like everybody else at the movie theater that I went to, my wife and I went to go see Asteroid City, the new Wes Anderson film. We had a lovely little date night and sat and watched a very weird movie. Not that all Wes Anderson movies aren't inherently weird just because he is weird, but this one in particular was definitely out on the outer edges a little more than some of his stuff. Although, as my wife pointed out very wisely, the French Dispatch, which I don't know if you two have watched,
I have, yeah.
It's a good movie, but it's not exactly linear. It's a little out there too. There's weird, and then there's Wes Anderson weird. Basic premise, of course, is that a group of different people from different circumstances end up in this little town where there's supposed to be these, the kids are there for this event, and then person's car breaks down. There's all these different things that happen that bring all these people to this little town where they have an encounter of the third kind, and just sort of, have these kind of, moments. It's at times quite funny. It's at times quite sweet. It's loaded. Like, there are so many people, famous people in this, and just beyond the famous, beyond the Scarlett Johanssons and the Tom Hanks and the Bryan Cranstons, there's also, just a ton of that guys. I know that guy. I know that guy. I know that guy. I've seen that guy in things. There's so many of that guys in there. It's a really good movie. I would highly recommend it, and I'd highly recommend seeing it on the big screen, just because, I don't know, he's everybody's cup of tea, but Wes Anderson makes interesting looking movies. His attention to detail. He's like
Terry Gilliam. There's always something to look at.
Yes. My wife said the exact thing coming out of the theater was, I feel like I need to watch that at least 2 more times. When you're first watching a movie, you're often kind of trying to digest the dialogue and follow the plot and enjoy the spectacle for the spectacle. but there's so much happening in Anderson's films where, you know, there's so much detail, there's so many little nuances, like the labels on things, the stuff in the background. It's the set that they use for Asteroid City. They built a little city, and apparently I saw a little behind the scenes thing last week, and apparently the little cabins that they're staying in Asteroid City was actually where they put the actors. That was their trailers as well. But it's so quintessentially Wes Anderson. It's all these little details, the colors, the symmetry. It's all the stuff that if you're a fan, you'll really enjoy it. If you're not a fan of Wes Anderson's weirdness, I imagine you probably would not enjoy this movie. It is a little all over the place. There's a lot of characters, so it gets a little overloaded at times. There's sort of, you know, a bunch of sort of concurrent plots that can get a little thick. But if you are a fan, I mean, Jason Schwartzman is essentially the star, and he's great. I was thinking about this. He's having a heck of a summer because he was the Spot in the new Spider-Verse movie. He plays the Spot, the sort of main, more or less villain in that movie, and now he's the star of this one. So yeah, good run for Jason Schwartzman coming back. But yeah, Scarlett Johansson's in it, and I don't think I've seen her in a Wes Anderson movie before, and she's really good. You forget sometimes because she's been sort of now subsumed by being Black Widow for so long in the MCU, but you know, then you look back to Lost in Translation or Ghost World or some of her earlier works, and you remember, oh yeah, she's actually a hell of a good actor, and she's really good in this. She's really captivating as this sort of starlet who is, you know, finding herself in this strange place. And yeah, there's a lot to like about this movie. I would definitely say it's worth a watch. I could understand if people want to wait and watch it at home, and there's definitely big pluses to that because it is, like most Andersons, it's going to need multiple watches. But if you get a chance, if you're looking for something to do on a rainy summer day, it's well worth seeing on a big screen.
Yeah, most of his movies, you know, like if they're on or if I happen upon them, I'll sit down and watch them for a bit too. They're always pretty compelling movies, right? So yeah,
they just loaded a bunch of them onto Disney Plus here in Canada. So yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
They're also on Crave as well.
I saw a few of them on Crave as well. I don't know if it's all the same things, but yeah, it was nice to see.
Not the whole catalog. Like I think Royal Tenenbaums. I didn't see Grand Budapest Hotel on Crave, but I did see Moonlight Kingdom, the one you just mentioned, French Dispatch. Yeah. Sometimes
it's the early stuff. It's Bottle Rocket, it's Rushmore. It's the early stuff that sometimes gets left behind. But yeah, I have the Criterion Blu-rays of almost all of them. I don't have the last few. I don't have the French Dispatch, and I don't think I have a couple of them. But I have most of his catalog on the Criterions.
Cool. What you got there, Jaime?
I have American Born Chinese, a series on Disney Plus. It's pretty breezy. It's 8 episodes. They're like half an hour each, I think, so it's pretty easy to binge. This one is interesting in that it has it has at least two Academy Award winners in it. Let me think of that. It has Ke Huy Quan and it has Michelle Yeoh. So this feels like it has to be a one and done series because there's no way Disney can afford both of those folks for a season 2 should they decide to do that. The basic idea is to take a Taiwanese American kid. He's a bit of a fish out of water in terms of how he feels about his place in the world, and it gets even crazier when the son of the Monkey King Sun Wukong, comes into play, and it's got a lot of sort of the mythical characters from the Journey to the West mythology, if you're even remotely familiar with Sun Wukong, or the Japanese name Son Goku. So Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z fans should kind of recognize that sort of imagery, if nothing else. It has sort of 2 layers. It has the sort of high schooler gets swept up in, becoming a hero, a reluctant hero kind of thing with, magic and sorcery surrounding him. But then it also has this sort of other plot thread line with Ke Huy Quan's character, who plays an actor who was a like the Steve Urkel kind of character on a 90s TV sitcom in universe, and it was a really sort of terrible stereotypical Chinese kind of character that he was playing. So there's a bunch of different levels in this that are pretty interesting. From a end-to-end plot line, it's fairly sort of even paced all the way through. I wouldn't say it gets especially high. I wouldn't say it gets especially low. So it's like probably more like B- C+ material. So I'm not saying it's a must watch, but I did think it was an interesting watch.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the stardom. I saw this and I have it on my watch list on Disney Plus because I read the book years ago when it came out. It's a graphic novel. And I thought, oh yeah, I didn't want to watch this. And I saw the cast list and I was like, oh, great cast. But it really is like, if you take the casts of Everything Everywhere All at Once and Turning Red, you basically have the entire cast of this. And it makes me think, one, I mean, great that we're making more Asian-led, Asian-produced material for the cinemas, but also says to me, maybe we need to like hire more different people as well. I mean, those are incredibly talented actors, but like the fact that we had these two stories centered around, you know, the Asian American experience, and it's like that we have to hire the same people because there aren't any other people.
It kind of has that, because I mentioned, I had to really think about it. I was like, well, Stephanie Hsu is basically like the reunion show for Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's like it's only missing, spoilers, it's only missing Jamie Lee Curtis, I guess, as far as main people go. I don't think Stephanie Hsu won. She was nominated for. She was nominated
because that's the one that Jamie Lee Curtis won that category.
Right. So it is kind of one of a weird thing of like, is it weird timing that like this crew got together? Is it because Hollywood only has the very tiny pocketbook of Asian actors that it can go for, rather than the, Blu-ray double density, encyclopedia volumes worth of other actors that they call for other roles when they're thinking outside of a particular set of genre folks? I don't know, and I feel like watching this for the Ke Huy Quan plotline is maybe worth it if you're not jazzed about the teenager getting into mythological hijinks.
Well, cool. I guess that's it for another week. So, hey, Jonathan, people want to get in touch with you. Where would they find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and Threads as at JPK News. And you can also find me on YouTube at youtube.com/@JPK.
And how about you, Jaime? People get in touch with you. Where would they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevTheHair.
For now, Jaime. For now.
Yeah.
That's it?
People have sometimes asked, and like, I sometimes respond to them with the GIF of Captain Jack Sparrow from like the opening part of the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where he's like, slowly heading towards the shore as the ship is sinking. He just walks off. Like, I feel like that's going to be my journey with Twitter, as I'm like, going to be the last one to walk off as it goes into the water.
Yep.
Okay. Well, my name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA, on the Twitter machine and the Mastodon machine. And I'm also Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA, on bluesky.social and also on Threads. So, till next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. This is Jean-Luc Picard. Shut up, Wesley. Sorry, say again. Just the tag. Gotcha. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
After show threads here, is that new, Jonathan?
Yeah, I just was gonna ask. I didn't know if you guys were the early adopters in the in crowd already.
Yeah. When did it come out? Just like today?
Yep.
Recently?
This morning. Well, I mean, late last night, really.
Yeah, it's got 30 million some users already, which is pretty bananas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was already on with my social team this morning at work, being like, well, how quickly do we recommend we switch over to here?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've been having this discussion about Twitter for months now, obviously, since the purchase, and trying to figure out, well, we've got 30,000 plus followers on here for our organization. We don't want to just throw those out, but if people start running for the hills, when do you look for a lifeline? And credit to the folks at Meta who were like, oh, did you want an app like this? And trotted this out.
However, it still won't cover Canadian news stories, right?
Nope. Although, I don't know if you followed that news today as well, but the Canadian federal government canceled all of its spending with Meta this morning. Pulled $11 million worth of spending annually out of
the Canadian government.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's a drop in the bucket to them, right?
It's true, but that was the process they went through a few years back when they did this exact same song and dance with Australia. So it's playing out the way you'd expect. They're posturing, they're threatening each other. Eventually, you'd hope that they would figure out a way that Facebook and Meta at large will, at least in some part, compensate Canadian publishers for stealing their intellectual property, which is what they've been doing for a decade and a half.
Yeah.
Thinking about scale here, right, for like threads. So 30 million in the first, 24 hours of it being available, and not available in the European Union for, I don't know, it doesn't comply with some privacy regulations. I don't know if it's GDPR specific or some other thing. So it hasn't opened up to the world yet. And it's kind of interesting that we, as a community, talk about Facebook and Instagram and Twitter as if they're even remotely the same tier.
Oh no! I mean,
if you look at monthly active users, right? Let's just step downward. So Facebook is the king at 2.9 billion. So it's nearly 3 billion with a B. Instagram, when I Google searched, it hits somewhere between 1 to 1.5 billion monthly active users. And then you step down an entire order of magnitude to Twitter, which has 350 some million with an M users. It's weird that these aren't even in the same class of apps. And that was before things got nutty, in the new regime with Elon Musk. So I would not be surprised to see at least Threads start equaling that, because I'm like, oh, they only have to he says with scare quotes, they only have to 10x the number of users that they've got to reach what Twitter has built up since nearly how old is Twitter, 15 to 20 years now. So if it gets to about half of what Instagram has, well, if you say Instagram has 2 billion, it'll have 1 billion. It's an order of magnitude bigger than Twitter for Threads. If Instagram has 1 billion, then this will reach 500 million, which again is 50% larger than Twitter. It's like comparing, I don't know, Walmart and the corner mom and pop shop. Like, they're not even in the same class. Why do we talk about it? I do this as well. I don't deny that I am anything other than culpable for thinking about it this way. But I really sat and thought about what those numbers mean of 30 million in the first 24 hours. I'm like, Twitter has never been in the same class. It's never been in the same tier as Facebook or Instagram. And yet it has an oversized sort of spot in the whole mainstream discussion of what's going on. Certainly we talk a lot about Twitter. We link to Twitter a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's... As far as strategy goes, I'd be curious. The part that I'm sort of waiting to see is the dissection of the algorithms, right? How are they doing this? What are they showing you? What are they not showing you? Are they following the Twitter model of here's the fire hose and you get everything, which is what I think a lot of people's number one complaint about Meta is right now, is that whether it's Instagram or it's Facebook, they have these increasingly punitive algorithms that basically are feeding you what they want you to see and not as much of, the stuff that you may have thought you were subscribing to follow. I wonder if it's just going to be a version of something like Twitter, but all it's going to do is just ram content down your throat that you don't want, which is a lot of what the Meta experience can be. I really want to see somebody get into the deep dive of like how everything works. But as far as the idea of it, like, Tim, I'm sure you had the same experience when you signed on, but like they make signing on so monumentally simple because they have the user base. Yeah. If you're on Insta, it's basically, do you want to just use the same thing? Cool. Here you go. And you're there. And it's like, do you want to follow the same people? Cool. Here you go. Like they just make it so crazy simple. Now, if there was somebody out there who wanted to write a way for us to be able to just migrate all of our follows from Twitter over, that would be fantastic. But
somebody will.
Somebody will. Of course they will.
The only thing about it is that Twitter keeps shutting down access to things, right? Yeah. So because there were some tools when Mastodon first came along where you could basically comb through all the people you followed already and just magically import them, and then as you go. But I noticed it even broke my the feed. I used to have a link on my own site that just showed my tweets, and I noticed on the weekend that they've killed that too. So
and the other thing that I don't know if you guys saw what Twitter did earlier today. One of my specialists read an article about it and told us about this morning. Was they've changed the maximum number of tweets you can scroll down on people's feeds.
Yes.
They've capped it. I think she said 60. That as far back as you can go unless you pay. Yeah. It's like, my God, you people want to fail. Like it's just like. I get, like, you can only put those kinds of things in if you're in a position of strength, right? Like, unless people are, like, desperate to use your platform, that's when you can make those kinds of decisions and be like, yeah, well, you know what? You love our platform. You got to pay for it. People don't love your platform right now. When you make those kinds of decisions, you make it really easy for them to be like, well, what's this thing over here? Like, I'm absolutely confounded by the decision making.
Yeah. But the problem is that, I mean, it's going to take a lot before Twitter just crumbles into the dust, Yeah,
but who's going to, like, I mean, I get it. Again, like, they're in the same quandary. A lot of users are in the same quandary. A lot of businesses, a lot of people have spent a lot of time nurturing audiences. Again, like, it was not overnight that we built a 30,000+ follower audience for my workplace. That took a lot of work and strategy and content development and nobody wants to walk away from that. And if, again, if you're somebody who's like an influencer and, you make money off of it or whatever, or you have, a real stranglehold on an audience, you don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
But I mean, when Joe Q Public, who follows you, or Jane Q Public, who follows you, is like, yeah, but now I just keep having more and more knocks from the way that they're running this, where like, I'm not sure if what I'm reading is true. And, the blue check marks mean nothing. And now I can't even go back and read old things that you wrote that were witty. Like, doesn't that run out? Doesn't that goodwill run out?
Yeah. I think I requested my my Twitter feed a couple of months ago when I saw this coming, just in case,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do. I gotta say though, one thing about Threads, coming back to that, is they do make it awfully easy to find all your people, because you just scroll through this list of like it's amazing easy to find people to start following, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm probably up to like over 50, and I've only been on it for like a couple of hours, right? So they do make it easy. So and what I like about it is it's almost like a fresh start. Like you said, I could have just said everybody from Instagram, but I've been on Instagram for a long time, and there's people that I don't even know anymore that are, or services over there that I would have followed at one point or whatever, but I don't have no interest in doing it now, right? So
yeah.
But I gotta say, the onboarding, like you said, has been super super easy on this platform.
Yep. But again,
oh look, it's Bill Gates.
It becomes a tricky one too. Like, I'm already looking at it and I'm like, I had sort of stopped being pretty active on Twitter just because, I didn't know what to do with it anymore. I was kind of sharing some work stuff for a while, but then I migrated a lot of the stuff I was sharing there to moving to my LinkedIn profile because I knew I was getting to people who might actually use it constructively. So, like, as much as obviously Threads can fill a need that Twitter has, like the thing that Twitter has done better than any other social platform ever is, and I say this as somebody who worked as a journalist for 20 years, it was and continues to be the single best breaking news real-time website on the planet. It is, because of the way the algorithm is written, because it is the fire hose and not the carefully selected, driblets of water that you get from places like Facebook and Instagram and even LinkedIn has an algorithm like that. You get everything. So if you're interested, like, the example I've given when I've done some talks at universities and stuff like that is, when I was working in the newsroom, I was there working on a Saturday shift a number of years back, and there was a gang shooting inside the Eaton Center. And we found out this pretty much the second it happened because one of my editors that I was working with had Twitter up on his computer, and he followed a bunch of athletes, and one of the Blue Jays was there. And he said, there's been shots fired at the Eaton Center. Everybody's running for the exits. And I was like, every reporter who's in this room right now, get your ass down to the Eaton Center. And, we were able to cover it in real time. We were able to share it in real time. Like, that is something you just, like, no news service can do that. Like, nobody can work that fast. There's no single place that works like that because it's publicly generated too. Whether it's a journalist you follow, an organization, a person, everybody can contribute to the conversation on a topic just by hashtagging it, right? So if that is part of what happens with Threads, great. So far, and again, it was part of the discussion I had with my team today, no hashtags on Threads. So that'll be interesting.
Oh, really?
Like, how do you sort through topics? How do you find new users who are interested in the same thing you are? That's all stuff that needs to be worked out in an iterative way. But Twitter's not going anywhere because it has that market cornered for now. The problem is it's also full of fake profiles, Russian hackers, and lies. And
true, yeah.
So, the problem is that as great as it is as a breaking news source, it's also full of BS. So, and toxicity and, homophobia and racism and misogyny, all the good ingredients.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting exercise. I mean, we'll have to see where we go with it.
All right. I think it's time for bed.
Yeah. I think Jaime's fallen asleep already.
But you're 3 hours behind us, Jaime. It's like barely 9 o'clock.
The heat is... we got a bit of a heat wave going on here, and
we got one of those too.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so
we had it first. We had it 3 hours before you.
Right?
No, it's 3 hours cooler here now, Tim.
That's true, or more humid. Oh, bright stars on here. Yeah, that's good. It's all good. Who knows who's going to win? Who's going to win? That's the I guess the big calculus, right? Anyway, but until next time, we'll see you guys later.
All right.
Bye.
Talk to you next week, guys. Bye.
Later.
Bye. I didn't say and scene.
And scene.
What the heck is the button to kill this show? What?
It was the show that never ends.
Yeah. I wrote a never-ending song for you. From now on, that's all I want to do. From the first time we met, I knew I'd sing this never-ending song for you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Later.